Let's be real for a second. In business today, two things are pretty much guaranteed. Energy costs are going up, and so is the pressure to be more sustainable. So how do you tackle these huge challenges without, just guessing and hoping for the best? Well, it all boils down to this one simple, powerful idea. You just can't get better at something you're not measuring. And that principle is the absolute bedrock of the international standard we're going to demystify today, ISO 50001. So if you want to stay on top of crucial frameworks like this one, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to be doing a lot more deep dives into ESG standards and what they actually mean for your business. Which brings us to the big question, right? Is your energy strategy built on precision and hard data, or is it more of a mad scramble after you see last month's utility bill? For so many companies, it's the second one, and it's usually because they just don't have the right system in place. I mean, without a proper system, you're basically flying blind. You have no real way of knowing if your new energy-saving project is actually working, if you're just treading water, or even worse, if you're actually getting less efficient. And that's exactly the problem ISO 50001 is built to fix. It gives you that solid international framework to finally move from guesswork to a real data-driven strategy. So how does this standard actually work its magic? Well, when you boil it all down, ISO 5001 gives you two super critical tools for your toolkit: energy performance indicators, which we'll call EnPIs, and energy baselines, or EnVs. These two things are what let us finally stop guessing and start knowing.
All right, first up, the NPI. This is your live, moment-to-moment measurement of how efficient you are. It's not just about your total energy bill. It's about how much work you get done for every bit of energy you use. Think of it this way. A good NPI is usually a ratio, like, say, how many kilowatt hours it takes to produce 1 ton of your product. It puts your energy use into context, and that's what makes it so powerful.
But how do you know if your NPI is any good? I mean, is that number high, low? That's where the energy baseline, or NB, steps in. The NB is basically a snapshot in time. It's a reference point you calculate from a specific period in the past, like maybe the last year, that represents your typical operations. This becomes your starting line, the benchmark you measure everything against. And here's the key. It's how they work together. Your NPI is always moving, right? It's dynamic, showing you what's happening now. You take that live number and you compare it against your static NB, your starting line. Is your energy per widget going down compared to last year's baseline? If the answer is yes, congratulations. You've got concrete, verifiable proof that you're improving.
Okay, so we get the concepts. But how do you turn this into something real? How do you actually build this foundation for your company? Let's get practical and walk through the steps. The very first thing you have to do, before you even think about numbers, is decide on your boundaries. What exactly are we measuring here? And what's really cool is how flexible ISO 5001 is on this. You can make your boundary the entire company, one factory, a single production line, or even just one big energy guzzling machine. Okay, so once you've drawn your lines on the map, the rest of the process just flows from there. First, you pick a good baseline period. A full year is usually best to iron out any seasonal weirdness. Next, you figure out what variables really affect your energy use. Is it the weather, your production numbers? Then you gather up all that data for your baseline period. From there, you build your NPI formula, your kilowatt hours per unit. And finally, the most important part, you start the cycle of tracking and reporting, always comparing how you're doing now to that baseline you just set.
And this is where we get to the real heart of ISO 5001. Because these tools, your NPI and your NB, they aren't for some dusty report you create once and then forget about. No way. They are the fuel for the engine of continuous improvement. And this whole thing runs on that classic cycle you've probably heard of. Plan, do, check, act. You plan an improvement. You do the work. Maybe you install a new motor. Then, and here's where our tools are everything, you check the results. You look at your live NPI and compare it to your baseline. Did it actually save energy? Based on that hard data, you act. If it worked, you standardize it. If it didn't, you adjust and try again. And listen, when you get this engine humming, the benefits aren't just theoretical. They are super real and tangible. We're talking lower operating costs, a smaller carbon footprint, and way easier regulatory compliance. Plus, it just looks good. It boosts your reputation and makes you more competitive in a world that really cares about this stuff now. And if you look at the data on why companies actually do this, the numbers speak for themselves.
Sure, compliance is a huge driver for about 85% of them, but look at this. Cutting costs is a massive reason for over 3/4 of businesses. So this isn't just about following rules, it's about directly improving your bottom line.
Okay, so let's make this even more real. Let's talk about how this stuff translates from data points on a chart to actual dollars in the bank, with a really cool example from heavy industry. So get this, there was this thermal power plant and they wanted to get, well, a lot smarter about their energy use. So instead of just a simple historical baseline, they brought in some serious data analytics. They created a dynamic baseline for their cooling tower system, one that could predict what their energy use should be at any given moment. This meant that anytime the real number was different, it was an instant red flag that something was wrong. And the results of all this? By using this smarter monitoring system, they found potential savings of 140 megawatt hours over 3 years. And get this, that was from optimizing just one single part of the entire plant. Imagine scaling that up.
This story just nails the true power of ISO 5001. It's so much more than a compliance exercise. It's a strategic playbook that turns your raw data into a clear roadmap for savings, efficiency, and real sustainable growth. It really makes you think, right? What hidden savings are just sitting there waiting to be discovered inside your data? Hey, if this breakdown was useful for you, do us a favor and hit like, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to ISO Automation Lab. We'll see you in the next one.